What, you have a podcast?
We moved? To where?
The state of Alabama.
Huh?
Alabama!
Are you serious?
Cobb? Yes, sir. You're aware of the name of this ship, aren't you, Mr. Cobb?
Very aware, sir.
It bears a proud name, doesn't it, Mr. Cobb?
Very proud, sir.
It represents fine people
Very fine people, sir.
who live in a fine, outstanding state.
Outstanding, sir.
In the greatest country in the entire world.
In the entire world, sir.
And what is that name, Mr. Cobb?
Alabama, sir.
And what do we say? Go, Bama!
Well, that was some damn fine propaganda. Hello and welcome to another episode of Recovery from Politics Podcast. I am your host, Kyle Frame, and today is Tuesday, August 29th, 2023. Hello. So, I am in Alabama, and today I get to start talking about that. But first, I really did want to talk about this stupid article yesterday in the Washington Post. And the reason that it was so interesting is, so for my entire life, from Reagan to basically Trump, every single president has had this theory of how best to improve the lives of its American citizens. And the basic idea was, if we give the American people cheaper shit, their money will go farther. And it's not an insane idea, right? If you could take something that used to cost $1 and now sell it for 50 cents, that is good for the consumer. That's very good for the consumer. But the problem happened with Clinton accepting a lot of right-wing talking points and NAFTA and everything else. Was the idea was, well, Americans don't need higher wages. They need cheaper shit. And that was pretty much the problem. So they ignored the manufacturing sector. They ignored, minimum wage growth. They ignored everything that was happening in front of them because they kept thinking, all Americans need are more trade deals, right? Obama tried the TPP before that got tanked. You have NAFTA. You even had Trump trying to renegotiate NAFTA, which, okay. But the point is that the American president, my entire life, both parties, has been, what Americans need is trade. Trade is good. Trade is good for everybody. And to a degree, it worked. Prices did drop. And CEOs on Wall Street and the mega billionaires made a fortune. So, you could convince yourself, if you look at the economy through this very narrow lens, that things were improving with each president. And the interesting thing was, apparently, Biden is bucking this trend. Biden is not focusing on trade deals. He left the China tariffs in place. He is very much incentivizing local manufacturing instead. And while that is a positive, because it also addresses something that I think is the underlying root problem. Remember, in 2016, we had two options, and, we kind of blew up one of them, was Bernie Sanders on the left and you had Donald Trump on the right, and both of them were basically saying the same thing. They were both saying that the system is broken and it's not helping you. And the right responded by nominating Trump, and the left responded by nominating Bernie, but the superdelegates overruled. So, whatever. Go DNC. Anyway, we had an opportunity, and the Democrats really haven't grasped a hold of the message. The message wasn't that the right wants a demagogue or we want a cult of personality on the left. We want somebody who's addressing our concerns. And our concerns is capitalism ain't working, guys. So they have a choice. They can either try to find a way to make capitalism work for us, or we can, elect somebody who's going to break the shit like Donald Trump. Now, in 2020, we gave the Democrats a pass because really all we wanted was someone sane in the White House. We were like, look, Grandpa Joe is old, but you know what? I know that man. He's not going to do anything crazy. He's not going to do anything stupid. He might occasionally gaffe and put his foot in his mouth, but he's not going to start World War III accidentally by having a dick-waving contest with North Korea, right? So this is a very important thing. Americans wanted stability, and I totally give him a pass for voting for Grandpa Joe. We can get into whether or not the DNC stacked the deck in favor of him another time. But for right now, okay, 2020 was about a return to normalcy. We still wanted someone to break the system, though. That didn't go away. Donald Trump didn't run unopposed in the Republican Party practically, because everyone loved his demagoguery. He was still the only candidate on the ballot on both sides, all Democrats, all Republicans. He was the only one saying, I'm going to break this shit. Bernie had his moment in 2016. I think in 2020, if he was really serious, he would have endorsed somebody like Elizabeth Warren. I think that was the practical approach. I think he tamped down on his own message in favor of, we need to beat Trump, without understanding the underlying cause and reason of Trumpism, which is that the system is not working for anybody. We don't need cheaper shit. We need jobs, and we need well-paying jobs. We don't need 2 jobs and a side gig with Uber. Okay, this is not working. This economy is not sustainable in any way, shape, or form. And the problem we have is our current elected leaders are all so damn rich that they don't understand what the common man is going through right now. This is very, very simple stuff for me and for you because we live it, we understand it, we see it. All our friends are here, but the people that live inside Washington, D.C., and not even Washington, D.C., it's a trope that, it's the Beltway and it's this Beltway thinking and everything else. Well, guess what? It's everywhere. Every rich neighborhood in every state and every county in this country has the exact same earmuffs on echo chamber because rich people tend to only associate with rich people. And they're the ones who really drive this country, unfortunately. CEOs don't get it. They may have that once a month or once a quarter, I'm going to go talk to the low-level guys and see what's going on. Well, those rooms are stacked because the first thing management is going to do is make sure anybody who actually has something to say is not there. Okay? Those rooms are screened. It's like a town hall you see on TV. It's not really a town hall. Every single member of that audience has been screened, and not just for weapons. So the wealthy here have pretty much settled. They've got what they want. And the presidents have always done things the way they are. I think it's interesting that Biden is doing this. I think Biden is not the messenger we need right now for this. This is actually why I was a huge fan of Pete Buttigieg back in 2020. I did want to return to normalcy, but more than that, I wanted somebody who could fucking communicate, okay? I miss the Obama years because President Obama was really good at communicating, whether you liked him or not. You knew what the man was saying. He said it at an intelligent level, but he didn't have that talking down to you thing. He was an extremely good communicator. Same thing with Ronald Reagan. I just wanted a good communicator. The word salad that is Donald Trump is just terrible. And while Biden might have the right message on this issue, he's not the guy selling it. Like, I had to read the Washington Post, and that shit's behind a paywall. So the average American is not hearing this, wonderful thing that Biden's doing. They're not hearing or even understanding there's a shift. As far as the right is concerned, the status quo has been maintained. The DNC is pretty much running things that way too. The status quo is being maintained. Everything is the same. We have returned to normal. So even this thing, which is a break from precedent of my entire life, is not getting through to people. So this, again, is another reason why I'm suggesting that, President Biden needs to not run. Personally, I think he should just come out and endorse who he wants, and it should not be Harris. Vice President Harris is not a good communicator. She is not what we need right now. If your goal is, I just want somebody who can defeat Trump, then you want somebody who can communicate. And I'm sorry, it's still Pete Buttigieg on the left. I know he's not. He's a centrist. He's probably more Republican than Democrat in the traditional sense. You know what? Right now, up against fascism or, this weird, stupid Democratic centrism, I'll take the stupid Democratic centrism. I am not a fan of West running. Him and Bernie are having an interesting feud right now. I understand and I totally get, we need to break it. But if you need to break it, then you don't need to worry about who the DNC is running. Okay, it could be Buttigieg, it could be Harris, it could be Biden. It doesn't matter. If you're interested in breaking it, there is going to be a name on the ballot who will break it, and his name is Donald Trump. So if you're in furtherance of breaking the system, thinking maybe we'll get past it, yeah, he's your vote. I'm sorry, he's your guy. You don't have to like him or anything. You just have to be kind of like, the Star Wars show Andor. The Empire was in charge. Yes, they were oppressive, but they weren't that bad. And at one point, they do this massive heist that causes the Empire to react. Specifically, the intelligence community is like, all right, we're gonna take a magnifying glass and a flashlight, and we're gonna go up everybody's ass, right? And the rebels are happy about this, right? The guy who organized the heist is like, yes! And of course, his centrist senator buddy is like, what are you doing? They're going to go hurt people. And he's like, yeah, that's the point. Because the more people they hurt, the more people who will join our cause. So if that's your thinking, if you're thinking it's got to get worse before it gets better, and I want to hasten the destruction of this system, I'm sorry, your vote is Donald Trump. It's not good. A lot of people are going to be hurt, which is why I am not advocating or endorsing that. I am very much anti-hurting people, even if that prolongs the shitty system we have. The less people that get hurt, the better. But that's me, and honestly, I can't argue with somebody if that's your philosophy. If you're like, I just want to see this shit broken, because the sooner it's broken, the sooner we can fix it. I understand your mantra. I get it. I just can't go along with it. For me, it's all about, peace and getting as few people hurt as possible. But I do hear you and understand you. And at least that's more than what the Democratic Party can say right now, because they sure as shit are not hearing you or understanding you. Only one person in the entire political apparatus right now understands you, and he is the Orange God King. Okay, so the big question, how is Alabama different from Washington State? As somebody who is clearly a left-leaning ideology person who was very much at home in Washington State and is now amongst the wolves here. So first off, there are a lot less Trump flags than I was expecting. Sometimes it can be misleading. See, I drove here, so I drove the entire distance. And when you're on the highway going through some red states, you see a lot of Trumpy stuff. Oh my God. There are people out there who clearly own too much land and don't know what to do with it, because they put up their own personal signs on the highway that are just all kinds of bad. Fuck Joe Biden, let's go Brandon, lock her up, Trump 2024, everything you could imagine under the sun, including all the religious dogma and BS there too. So when I got here, I was expecting a lot of that, because it is very in your face in those scenarios. Now, I will say there are a lot of churches, like an insane amount of churches around here. I don't even know how they survive. Me personally, in case you weren't aware, I am against the idea of not taxing churches. That is not in the Constitution. They are not protected. I don't think it helps spread free speech. Quite frankly, I think, we need to tax them. They have clearly too many of these damn things. And I don't think that they're really running at full speed. But anyway, so there are a lot more churches. There are more Trumpy, there are more Trump bumper stickers and whatnot that you see around here, more fuck Joe Biden and all that stuff. There are a lot of those. There are a shit ton of trucks. I mean, the cars around here are just huge. But the people are nice. They do look at me weird, because while there is a slight increase in Trump stuff, there is a significant decrease in anything of the left. I haven't seen a single Biden sticker, Hillary sticker, even a Bernie sticker from way back when. There is no trace of anybody, even of the left, around here. To my knowledge, I'm the only one driving around with a bumper sticker even remotely close to it, and it's this weird one. It's got a really bad photo of Karl Marx on it. Yeah, I know. And the back of it says, "Get in, loser, we're here to seize the means of production." I have gotten a few dirty looks from some old men in parking lots with that one. But other than that, nothing. Nobody's really said anything. Another thing I've noticed is I wear funny t-shirts. I wear funny t-shirts that say funny things on them. they're a lot of fun. Some of them are really silly. Some of them aren't. They don't say anything. Like I have this really fun one. It's one of my favorite T-shirts. My kids got it for me for Father's Day one year, or maybe Christmas. One of them. And it's basically It's like the table of elements, but instead of the elements, it has like Mario characters. So it's got Mario, Princess Peach, Toad, Luigi, Wario, Bowser, like all of them, right? And it's this whole thing. It's a lot of fun. One thing I've noticed that's very strange is when I transition down here to Alabama, all of a sudden, a lot of women are commenting on my shirts. Like I'll go to the checkout line or something, and I'm just doing my thing. I'm not chatting them up or anything. And all of a sudden they look up and they smile and they say, "I really like your shirt." Now, I only bring that up because the fact that I was getting that compliment so frequently really made me like question things. And so I started looking around and I realized the men down here take themselves very fucking seriously. Like, holy shit. Like every single one of them is wearing an American flag shirt and or very businesslike. There's no comedy. There's no levity at all. Like it's very strange. There's not even sports stuff. Like I'm rocking my Seahawks gear over here every now and then, and I don't even see anybody over here. I'm in between Houston Texans, Tennessee Titans, and the Atlanta Falcons, and I haven't seen any of that. I haven't even seen the Braves. All right, no Atlanta Braves. The closest thing I've seen is there's a local team called the Rocket City Trash Pandas, which is, I think, a AAA team out here, and I am very interesting. I mean, I think they're hilarious. The Trash Pandas. It's a real team. I mean, I'll support them just because of that. It sounds hilarious. And I'm all in favor of, AAA games. I've driven past the stadium a few times. I haven't been there yet. It's been too damn hot. Good God, that's another thing. It's not the heat, it's the humidity. Because the heat is like, it's 98 degrees today, but then the weatherman will be like, but it's going to feel like 120, so don't go outside, period. And I'm like, holy shit, and they're not kidding. Just stepping outside from an air-conditioned room to the outside world around here is like getting smacked in the face with a sledgehammer. It is immediate and abrupt. Now, I've kind of felt this in my own past because I grew up in Southern California, so I did know heat. But the real challenge was when we went to Las Vegas. Las Vegas was pretty much the only place that my parents wanted to go. It was a 4-hour drive, but there was very similar to what I'm experiencing here because obviously all the casinos there are very air conditioned, and boy did they get it downright good. And this was back before we started banning cigarette smoke, so the ventilation in those places was like top notch. You kind of had to. So you would go from inside, very well ventilated, very, very powerful air conditioner, and the second you step outside, again, it's that same sledgehammer hit. The only difference is, and yes, it is cliche to say, it's a dry heat. And yeah, it's hot in Vegas. You would get the same temperatures, 117 degrees, but it's a dry heat. You don't notice it. It's that humidity that fucks you up. Like I look on my phone and it tells me the humidity index is like, it's 95% humidity. And I'm like, doesn't that mean it should just be a wall of water outside? And so that is a huge thing. And of course we did move here amidst the hottest July in all of human history, potentially the Earth. We don't know. And I think we're on pace for the hottest August ever too. So there's that. The lightning storms have been fun, so there's the weather thing. But back to this shirt thing. It is true. Like the men around here seem to take themselves very seriously. And I'm getting the feeling that me walking around with my funny t-shirts is a breath of fresh air to a lot of these people, and particularly women, because it is the women who are, I like your shirt. It's and yeah, they're just retail workers. I don't know anybody here yet, really. I haven't socialized much outside from my local, political party that I'm associating with. I haven't really reached out to anybody to make friends, so it is odd because up in Washington, like, you have people who take themselves too seriously everywhere, but it seems to be a little freer up there. Like, I rarely got complimented on a t-shirt. If I did, it's because I was the first guy. It was a brand new one that nobody had seen yet, right? But But yeah, like up in Washington, there are tons of guys like me who wear funny t-shirts. Like, it's not a big deal. But down here, it's like everybody's buttoned up and very serious all the time. And this is another thing I've noticed. There are not so many Trump flags on things, but you see a lot of the "Don't Tread on Me" sticker. And this also got me thinking, like, that's a favorite of everybody. And I started thinking, if that flag, same writing, same color scheme, same type of artwork, but instead of a snake, if it was like the North American beaver, I don't think it would be that popular, because I think the people down here just take themselves so fucking seriously, and especially the men, that they're constantly thinking of what's badass. You know what's badass? The "Don't Tread on Me" snake is badass. Because I also see a shit ton of Punisher symbols. The comic character who's got the skull as his thing. You always see the Punisher, and you might see his logo with the American flag draped over it, kind of a deal. Which is kind of ironic for, both of those flags, both of those symbols, because the creators of both of those did not intend what these assholes think they do. Like, the Punisher was made specifically as a mirror to show the people in power, you are oppressing people. Like idiots. So, and the idea that the Punisher is pro-police or any of it, like, he is a vigilante who murders the fuck out of people. Like, the whole point of the character was to shine a light on something that was wrong in the world. And it got me thinking about, we always see the Punisher symbol, and we see Batman, and who's everybody's favorite X-Man? Wolverine. Immortal stabby stab guy is everybody's favorite guy. The guys who want to break the rules, the guys who are the badasses, right? But here's something interesting. I cannot recall the last time I saw a decal on somebody's truck that was Captain America's shield. Right? Captain America in all of comic books, outside maybe Superman, is supposed to be the epitome, the best version of an American, right? He punches Nazis. He only kills Nazis when he has to. First off, he doesn't kill unless he absolutely has to, right? The entire point of his backstory was he was the best of us. And that is why they gave him the super serum. They didn't just want a soldier. They wanted a good soldier. If you could create such a thing, right? But nobody emulates him. Nobody says, I want to be like Captain America. They're all like, they put up the clause. They're like, I want to be Wolverine. I want to be Punisher. I want to be Batman. I want to be a vigilante who kills, basically. And I just thought that was something that popped in my head the other day that I just was like, wow, that is kind of weird. Nobody does that. But you see it even in today's politics, like with Donald Trump, is like one of the reasons that the right, that some people, the children really love Donald Trump, is because, he says it like it is, and he's really going after the left, and it's all about liberal tears, and he attacks, right? He's badass. And it kind of reminds me of the snake, the "Don't Tread on Me" snake, or everything else. It's like, they don't want to be the best version of ourselves. It's not good enough for them to just have an American flag. Or it's not good enough for them to just have their state flag. They have to have the rebel flag. They have to have the symbol of someone who literally murders the shit out of everybody, right? And so I'd say that is the single biggest difference between Washington State and Alabama. Blue state to red state. Red states, the men around here seem to take themselves way, way seriously. Everything is as serious as a goddamn heart attack. And that is the biggest culture shock, I think, to me so far. It was one I wasn't expecting. I was expecting a little bit, a few other things. And we'll see as the, election season gets closer, and we'll see just how contentious things get around here. But for right now, I'd say the biggest difference is that I am the only guy that looks like he's comfortable in his own skin. A funny t-shirt is disarming. I'm not trying to look like a badass out here, even though, I am armed these days. Not with anything, like, again, I'm anti-gun. Bad. But, I do carry a weapon on me, and it is visible. Interesting thing about Alabama, though. So Washington has very strict knife rules. Like, you can't have a knife this long. You can't have spring-loaded, gravity, all these, like, tons of rules. And where you can carry it and all that stuff. Up here, the only rule on knives that I can find is basically you cannot conceal carry a Bowie knife. Now, a Bowie knife is this massive, huge thing. Think Crocodile Dundee, where he pulls out, this is a knife, right? Like that. Like, and apparently you can carry it. You can open carry one of those all you want, but you cannot conceal carry one of those. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, you know what? If you feel comfortable enough to walk around with this thing just all willy-nilly next to your bits in your pants, I say congratulations. That should not be illegal. You should be applauded for having the balls to do that. Because if I did that, I would slice things off. So yeah, just something I noticed up here. But yeah, the people up here, I'm getting the feeling everybody just takes themselves way too seriously. Everybody's wound very tight, and they don't want to show vulnerability or levity at all. Like, I hardly even see just a general funny bumper sticker. Everything is extremely serious and weird. Like, nobody's laughing ever, anywhere. Maybe it's the heat. I don't know. So finally today, I wanted to kind of do this thing where, I'm new to the area. I have no idea who my congressman or anybody is. The only name I knew in Alabama politics was who is universally recognized as the stupidest senator, Tommy Tuberville. But, since he gets a lot of attention, like, I already knew a lot about him. And, while it was still good for me to go through and, research him, there are two other people who represent me nationally. So we'll start off here with the 5th District of Alabama, Dale Strong. Okay. So the only thing I kind of knew about this guy is that he's a huge Trump supporter, and he is. He is very much in favor of that garbage. But some other things I found out was he likes to put earmarks onto things regarding the Huntsville Northern Bypass Project and additional lanes on US 72. I have particular problems with this because I think that this particular area has a lot of stroads. Okay, that's where they take a street and a road and they combine them and it just turns into a huge mess. Think of a highway, but with, stoplights every mile. It's a pain in the ass. But anyway, he thinks the problem here is that we don't have enough lanes. And I obviously have a huge issue with that. I don't think the problem is too many lanes. I have noticed there is no public transit whatsoever. There is no bus, there is no train, there is no tram, there is nothing. I haven't even seen a fucking taxi. Not saying they're not here. They probably rely heavily on Uber and Lyft. But there's nothing at all. So if you ask me what I would want my congressman to earmark in this particular case, I would say recognize what's going on, plan for the future, and get some infrastructure in here right now. We need bus transit, at a minimum, right? Like, it's crazy. There are no sidewalks or anything. There aren't even crosswalks. Like, in Washington, if you see somebody just running across the street, you're like, oh, you jaywalker, and maybe you get mad at them or whatever. But down here, I'm just like, yeah, what are you going to do? Right? I would say go to a crosswalk. I haven't even fucking seen one. So, right off the bat, I'm not liking this guy's thinking. The way he thinks is very... You can tell by the way they earmark. What are they thinking of? And this guy's thinking, my area is growing, which is true. It is growing. This is a heavily populated area that is growing by the day. That is a positive, right? So his line of thinking is, we need more lanes. And I'm like, no, you need public transit. So right off the bat, we're not agreeing. But whatever, what else is he really big on? He is huge on the border wall. Good God, fuck, holy crap. He is massively, massively in favor of ending all immigration and building a border wall, which I find really funny considering we're in Alabama. And if you haven't looked at a map of the United States lately, Alabama borders 0 foreign nations. We have the ocean and Florida to our south, so, don't get me wrong, Florida can be weird, but they are still the United States. We have Georgia to the right, Tennessee to the north. It's crazy. We border no foreign countries. So why someone in Alabama is so big on a border wall is beyond me. And I really think that should have been an opening, and I wasn't here for the last election, but I'm hoping that whoever ran against this guy hammered that home really big. Like, yeah, okay, we get it. You want it to be a border wall. You want a border wall. You'll vote for a border wall. That's fine. Really, it is. But that can't be... That should not be your tent pole. Like that can't be your pillar that you're standing on. Like, why should we elect you to Congress? Because I'll get that damn border wall built. It's like, okay, but you are literally in a district, in a state that doesn't border anything. Like, I get you saying you vote for it, but this cannot be your number one issue, right? Like there has to be more. But no, his big issue is he is totally anti-immigrant and border wall. Crazy. But then, I go into his voting record and I want to see, well, what did he vote against? And I think what you vote against tells a lot. So in this case, he voted for what was known as HR 2796, which basically would have provided educational resources to promote capital raising for minority small businesses. Okay, so these are businesses that we all know that systemically there have been, home loans wouldn't go out to black people, or they wouldn't go out to specific spots in town because of the redlining and all that. Like this is known. This is a part of history in America, right? There are certain people who the banking system has told to fuck right off. And this bill would have addressed it just the tiniest amount. It's not even like a huge reform. It's just hey, we want to make this tiny program. It's going to educate the business owners on how to raise capital. So that's it. It's not going to give them capital. Okay, it's not going to direct banks to do anything. It's not going to reform the system at all. All it would do is we're going to hold some seminars that the government's going to pay for, and these small business owners who are minorities can go there and get training on how to raise capital. So they're still going to have to go to the same fucked up banks and the same fucked up billionaires to get their capital raising. The only thing that's trained is the government will teach them how to be polite and kiss their ass, I guess. Like, I don't even know. But he voted against it. And I'm just like, but why would you? And the only thing, again, I can think of is that this guy's probably got a problem with the fact that it only went towards minority small business owners. Because you can't be anti-small business, right? Like, nobody's anti-small business. That's insane. So it has to be the fact that this was going strictly to minorities, strictly to people who've been that. So it's either he doesn't want to acknowledge that America has a racist past, which is just history. I'm sorry. It's just a thing that happens, or did happen, or is happening, however you want to look at it. Or he really hates the fact that money would go to minorities. So you can pick whichever it is. Either he's got his head in the sand and doesn't want to acknowledge a thing that is very true and real, or he hates brown people. I'll leave it up. Right now, I don't know. It could be either. Because otherwise, there's no reason to vote against this. It's a minimal amount of money. Again, it doesn't change fucking anything. So it's a really one of those things. It's like, why the fuck would you vote against this? This has nothing to do with anything. Anyway, the next thing he did was he voted no on HR 1715, which directed the Department of Energy and the NOAA, which is the oceanic thing, to research climate change. That's it. It would have directed them to, hey, could you research climate change? That's it. And he voted no against it. Again, this wasn't it wasn't, approving funds to go to these agencies. Like, we're going to give you an extra $1 billion to research climate change. At least then you could maybe say, well, we have bigger things we need to worry about, or that $1 billion should go wherever. And no, I don't agree with that. I'm just saying, you could find some wiggle room for a congressman, right? If you attach a money thing. This had no money to it. It was merely a direction that says, hey, Department of Energy, could you take the money that we've already given to you, and you get to decide how much you even spend on this. Like, there's no specifics in this thing at all. It was just basically, hey, we would like the Department of Energy and the Ocean Administration, I'm sorry, I don't know what the acronym means, to research climate change. Just to research it. That's it. And he voted no on it, which again is one of those things that's like, okay, so this guy is clearly not only a climate denier, he is somebody who is militantly a denier, right? Because, okay, even if you're one of those people who still exists in 2023 who doesn't believe climate change is real, the only reason to oppose the idea of researching it is that you are militantly against it. Like, you're just that against it, right? I mean, because it makes no sense. It's like, okay, whether you agree with climate change or not, whether you think it's real or it's not, whether you think it's man-made or it's just God fucking with us, whatever. What is the harm in research? And the harm would be that you know damn well that if you do research, somebody's going to write a paper, and that paper might come back and say, hey, fuckwad, all that coal you're burning, that's what's causing it. And I think ultimately that's what he's doing here when he votes against stuff like this, because again, this bill was not apportioning money to anybody. It was just research on your own. This thing. There was no deadline attached to it. They weren't saying, hey, we want this project done but in 6 months, kind of. Nothing. It was just, hey, go do some research. And he voted no against it. And I think that tells you a lot. Specifically, I mean, let's be honest. We just had the hottest summer on record for human history. Like, there should be absolutely no one who's against research. Why would you be against research? For anything, really. So that tells me a lot about him. He also voted no for 2 specific House resolutions, continuing resolutions. Now, these Resolution 30 and 21. 21 was to direct the President of the United States to remove all armed forces with the exception of, like, embassy protection. So, you know, those soldiers are still there. But basically all armed forces from Syria and Somalia. And so that's House Continuing Resolution 21 and 30. And he voted no for both of those. Now, that strikes me as odd that he would do that. So District 5 in Alabama is very pro-military. There is a huge base here. This is where Tuberville wanted Space Force to have their command thing at, whatever. But so this kind of bothers me because we're not at war with Somalia. We're not at war with Syria. There are no anything. The reason we have troops there is still left over from the war on terror because we gave the president these emergency war powers and we have since never rescinded them. This is a big deal for me because the only way that these war powers end is if the president voluntarily says this is officially over, or if Congress says, fuck you, we're ending it now. And he voted not to do that. And again, he's not voting no to continue the war on terror. He's voting no that these 2 specific countries not have American troops in them. Now, I'm all in favor of American troops not being anywhere other than America. But Somalia we're not at war with. Syria we're not at war with. I have no problem if you want to say Assad is a dickhead and needs to be removed. Okay, fine. Let's draft up some more resolution powers and go take care of it. But if you're telling me the president's just going to try to remove a dictator as his side gig, fuck you. That's not the way we do things. And it shouldn't be the way we do things. I know it is the way we've been doing things, but whatever. So that to me says a lot. Like, that's what he votes no for. He votes no against small businesses, an educational program for minorities. He votes no for researching climate change. He votes no for bringing troops home. And so what I can gather from this is he's against minorities to appease his base. So he thinks his base is racist. Sorry, Albanians, or Alabamans. He thinks you're racist. He's probably getting money on the side from fossil fuel companies, which is the only reason on earth to like be against fucking research. And he clearly is in the pocket of weapons manufacturing because there's no other reason to keep these wars going. Seriously. Again, if you want troops in Somalia, like, I'm not going to argue with you, but I think we can both agree that this is not how you do it. If we're going to have troops in Somalia, it's because the United States has declared war, or there is a definite war powers resolution that has been placed, like the president gave a primetime speech and convinced the nation, this is why we need to go to Somalia and take care of this issue. That's fine. Okay, whatever. But going and having forces in Somalia and Syria because you're using the back door that was offered to you from the war on terror, I'm against that. And I think all of us should be. And very clearly say, hey, we understand the United States has the world's biggest military and that because of that, there are a lot of people getting wealthy off of it and they want the wars to be going. Okay, whatever. I don't want any president having the ability to just have a side war going on. Okay? It wasn't cool when Reagan did it in Grenada. It wasn't cool when Clinton did it. It wasn't cool when, all of them do it. No, I don't like it. And it needs to fucking stop. A lot of these extra powers that we've given the president need to be rescinded. Okay? They were given under emergency circumstances, and they just didn't have an ending clause because of that whole, you can't tell the enemy when we're gonna leave bullshit. Right? But yeah, we do. We need to do this. So yeah. Other than that, this asshat Dale Strong sits on the Armed Services Committee, the Homeland Security Committee, and the Committee for Science, Space, and Tech, which makes sense. He's in a big military town, which is why he's on Armed Services. His big number one issue is the border, which is why he's on Homeland Security, and he lives in, the big city here is Huntsville, which is, you got NASA, you have Blue Origin. You have a huge space Air Force thing going on here. So that also, makes sense, right? So that's why he's on those committees to, it would make sense on its own to represent. I don't agree with the Homeland Security thing just because it's like, dude, why? Again, I think it's very strange for somebody from Alabama to be really piped up about the, border. Like, seriously, you don't border anybody. Anyway, that is Dale Strong, who I hope loses, and, may he run out of toilet paper when he needs it the most. Not a fan. Of course, he is very Trumpy. I didn't see anything about how he voted in the second impeachment, because he's brand new. He just came in here in 22. So we'll keep an eye on him. I wanted to go over Tuberville and Katie Britt, but looks like I'm running out of time here. I don't want this to go on too long. We'll save Tuberville for another day. Katie Britt is going to be quick just because there's nothing about her. So she is the junior senator of Alabama here. Her name is Katie Britt. She's only 2 years younger than me. She sits on the Committee for Appropriations, Ranking Housing and Urban Affairs, and Rules and Administrations for the Senate. Okay, big deal. It doesn't matter. The only thing I can find about her is just like Dale Strong, she is very pro-wall. She's like, she wants a wall. And again, Alabama does not border anybody. Don't get me wrong. You can make a case for Florida. If Alabama wants to put a wall up between them and Florida, I will support that 100%. 100%. You won't even, no, that is the only wall I'm in favor of as an Alabaman. Give me that wall between us and Florida. There is some fucked up shit going on in Florida, and I want nothing to do with any of it. Okay? But that's like it. She is an empty suit. Like, she ran on that and was just like, she got in on the very, 2022 fuck Joe Biden crew. So she hasn't done anything of note yet. All I know is that she's very pro-wall. So we'll save Tuberville for another day. America's stupidest senator, as ranked by several media outlets. So, it's not just me saying that. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I'll let you listen to this wonderful rant by Mehdi Hassan, who I think he did his thing on Sunday night, and we will see you again tomorrow.
Campaigned for office by retweeting white supremacists, while in office defended neo-Nazis as very fine people, and since leaving office has hosted a Holocaust denier at Mar-a-Lago for dinner. Oh, and don't even try the, why are you politicizing this, Mehdi? We should be focused only on the person who pulled the trigger and no one else card. I'm Muslim. You don't get to play that card with me or my community. For the past 20 plus years, since 9/11, Muslim communities in this country have been relentlessly questioned, examined, pathologized, scrutinized for the slightest signs of extremism or violence. White conservatives have demanded that brown Muslims subject themselves to extra checks at their places of worship and places of work. White conservatives have asked where the violence in Muslim communities comes from. What's the ideology behind it? Who are the hate preachers who are radicalizing angry and impressionable young men? They've demanded the Muslim community get their house in order. Well, tonight, this brown Muslim is asking the white conservative community to do the same. Get your house in order. Crack down on the hate preachers who you've empowered and on their foot soldiers who you've emboldened. Condemn the rise of white supremacist ideology, of white supremacist terrorism, and denounce the daily racist outbursts on your cable news channels and your talk radio networks. Oh, and don't hide behind lazy whataboutism about Black Lives Matter and Antifa, neither of whom have ever massacred anyone at a church or a Walmart.
Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you want to support the show, the best thing you can do is to like, subscribe, share, and leave a review. You can always email me directly at recoveryfrompolitics@gmail.com. I can also be found on Facebook, Threads, and most social media sites except the site formerly known as Twitter. That's a Nazi site, and you will not see me on it anymore. Your support is crucial as this show is not monetized. It is a one-man show using free software on his free time, so your reviews mean a lot. Thanks again for listening, and I'll see you next time.